One of the more interesting names in the draft was Army edge rusher Andre Carter II, and some during the season saw him as a very high potential draft pick, maybe even day 2, maybe even sneaking into round 1. And Army hasn't had a first round draft pick since what, I don't know, the 40s, somewhere way back then. But Carter ended up going undrafted for a myriad of reasons, which we'll get into, and then the Vikings brought him in as a UDFA. I'm super pumped about him, and him and Ivan Pace Jr. headline the Vikings UDFA class, which looks extremely strong, man. But let's get into it. Let's talk about Andre Carter II today. Background: 22 years young, 6'7". Legit. 256, originally from Houston, Texas. He entered the United States Military Academy at West Point. Thank you for your service. And just really impressive. Just really impressive. The Service Academy players that are playing primarily for the love of the game, and they're going to be the leaders in our military, leaders in our country, and I always respect what they do there. And for Carter II, his junior season 2021 busted onto the scene big time, man. 15 and a half sacks, which was an Army record, second in FCS in sacks, 44 tackles, 18 and a half tackles for loss, interception, 4 forced fumbles, as well as 59 pressures, and that's what put him on the radar. That's what put him on the map. His big time junior season. Of course, he can't enter early, coming out of a service academy, but that put him on the NFL draft map for sure heading into 2022. And then, this season, it wasn't as good, where he was slowed by injuries, missed 2 games, plus teams completely sold out to stop 34. He did have 3.5 sacks and 23 pressures. Also, 2.5 of his sacks did come in one game early on against Texas San Antonio. Go Roadrunners. And overall, it was just... It was a disappointing sequel to his amazing 2021 season, is what it is. Was invited to the Senior Bowl, didn't stand out either in the game or in the practices, so that was the first knock against him. And then he did not test very well at the combine. Slow 40, slow in explosive drills, okay in agility, and overall it was just a really disappointing draft season for Carter. Again, it's one of the reasons why he went undrafted. Lance Zierlein, NFL.com. This is what he wrote up. Draft projection rounds 5 to 6. And again, this is why Carter and Pace make this UDFA class great, because they could have been drafted mid-rounds, day 3, maybe even Carter sneaking into day 2 despite the offseason, and no one would have batted an eye. It's not crazy, but the Vikings get both of them as UDFAs. Woo! Overview. Long and rangy, Carter is currently best suited as a 3-4 rush linebacker on passing downs. Seen that, but is likely to develop into an every down player with additional growth both physically and technically. Carter needs to play with more skilled hands and inject a little more glass into his on-field diet in order to meet force with force when the run game comes downhill at him. His explosive get-off and natural bend, agility at the top of the rush are enough to create early opportunities for himself as a quarterback hunter. Carter might need a longer runway to meet his potential, but if does his pass rush homework? If he does his pass rush homework, nailed it. No, that was not on me. That was on Lance. He could take a substantial leap forward as an odd or even front edge rusher by year 3. And one of the reasons why he potentially could have gone undrafted is his status. So, academy players that can play professional sports, or potentially gone in, it's gone back and forth where they're allowed to defer their service commitment. Sometimes they're not. I think, personally, as someone who never served, someone who is completely outside opinion, I think that it is good where if these guys play, say, in the NFL, where it's fantastic advertising every single Sunday, they're going to get talked about in every single telecast, and overall for the Service Academy as well as for the branches, I think it is good marketing. But also I understand, hey, you signed up for this academy, you signed up, this is your commitment, and here you go. So again, I see both sides of it, and one of the reasons why he could have slipped, because it goes back and forth. It literally goes by administration back and forth. All right, so players can defer, players cannot, players can apply to defer, players cannot. As of right now, he's good to go, hence why he signed up with the Vikings. But also, one of the reasons why he may have been undrafted, because that could change. That could change from year to year, but Carter is in camp with the Vikings. And I think this is a pretty good spot for him. I love Mike Smith as an edge rush developer. Marcus Davenport is in a very similar situation. Obviously, Davenport was a little bit more jacked up as a first-round pick, number 14 overall. Ooh, UTSA. That's right. So maybe they got some beef going, Davenport and Carter II. But who knows what happens with Za'Darius? Frankly, who knows what happens with Daniil? But you're not going to be throwing Carter into the fire right away, and the Vikings can certainly take their time. I think that he could and should be a practice squad candidate to start, maybe a year, maybe two. You do have Patrick Jones II, who I think is primed for a big-time leap. Wanham is still doing the damn thing. Luigi Villain was on the 53 all off-season last year, Wake Forest and Michigan. I also got Weaver and Whitley. So I think the Vikings are good to go. I think it's a great spot for him where he can sit and he can learn and he can grow and show. And yeah, Carter does need to add size, even though he is 256. I mean, adding some NFL size would certainly benefit him. He's a little bit lean, does need a lot of technique refinement. Seems to get by a lot on natural ability, and it could be 2 to 3 years before he's a dude. But obviously, leadership, intangibles, work ethic, that all comes in with being admitted to the service academies. And I think that he's an impressive young man. I think that he does have a lot of physical tools, and for a myriad of reasons, whether it's the deferment, whether it's the Senior Bowl, whether it's the Combine, he went undrafted after being very highly touted after his very prime junior season, and having a down senior season certainly was a part of that too. But I'm more than happy to have him in camp as a UDFA. Hell, if the Vikings would have drafted him late day 3, I wouldn't have been mad about it either. But getting him as a UDFA, I think that's huge value, and rooting for him, even if it may take a couple years for him to pan out on his potential. But that's it. Your thoughts are thoughts. Vikings UDFA edge rusher Andre Carter II. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol Production Value.